Good evening, Cabalites. I thought it would be quite some time before I did another one of these, but it seems that Calli, as always, is busy working. Has dropped 2 more songs in her recent EP that have to do with a very, very favorite subject of mine, content creation. Today we're going to be covering the song Grr and the topics of dealing with both hate from outside sources and from yourself as a content creator. Now, before anybody says anything, yes, I know she did her own lyrical deep dives on this. I was there for it. But she's also said that she more than encourages other people to interpret her message as they will. And I think that a breakdown of the song, even if it's intended as a joke of a song, can be valuable for both aspiring, new, and even established content creators who may struggle with the topics covered in this. So, let me go ahead and find the song. I think it's here somewhere. Ah, here it is. And we'll get right into it. Enjoy!
Give it up, give it up. Dead beats, we like it rough. Give it up, give it up. Dead beats.
So, in the very beginning, we have Give It Up, Dead Beats, We Like It Rough, and It's High Noon. This, in my opinion, can be interpreted in about 3 different ways. The first one is those decrying Calli or your my work as content creators. Those that maybe just don't like our personalities, our characters, or our content, that tell us to give it up. The second can be that insidious internal voice that ultimately agrees with these people, that says, I'm not good enough, and I should give up. That insidious little head goblin that seems to get to so many aspiring creators, and even established ones. But the third one, the third way you can interpret Give It Up, is telling these individuals, or that voice in your head, to go ahead and give up that struggle. You're not going to give in to their demands. There's work to be done, and you intend to do it. Deadbeats, we like it rough. I can look at this in about 2 different ways. One, I've said it before, that being a content creator, especially starting out, is about embracing the suck. Because sometimes it really and truly does. And when you embrace how rough it can be starting out, or at some patches even when you're established, I believe that's what makes or breaks a content creator. But in the secondary aspect, it can be embracing those that belittle your work. You see, when it comes to YouTube and things like that, engagement is engagement. If they dislike, if they leave a comment, YouTube still sees it as somebody engaging with it and will use that to promote your work. At the end of the day, it's just a button and some words. And lastly, it's high noon. I know there are other interpretations of this, and Calli has her own. But as a cultist of the gaming gods, I can't help but look at this line and think of Overwatch. Anybody who's played that game knows what tends to happen when this line is uttered. And I believe it can be seen as a reference to how a skilled retort can be for those who like to spew vitriol.
So wait, eat skirt to the yat steez. A little more wind, we can shoot the breeze. The routine's got me reminiscing back to the start line. Madness indeed, I believe those part-time.
Alright, I'm pretty excited about this one. So a yeet yeet to the skirt to the yacht yacht steezy. This one was a bit unexpected, but I'm glad that I got the reference. If you follow me on Twitter, you've already seen it. But this, in my opinion, references a Saturday Night Live skit about SoundCloud rappers versus old school hip hop and rap artists. But the gist of it is that the new SoundCloud rappers with their minimal lyrical prose are seen as just spouting catchy buzzword gibberish and then profiting off of it. Now, what does that have to do with Calli or content creators? Well, you see, often when a person is attacked for being a creator, either by someone or themselves, it's generally on what they've done, their art. In Calli's case, music. In my case, my videos. In others, whatever they've created. It's a prime source for someone or yourself to look at and say, this is trash. Because content creators put their blood, sweat, and tears into creating things like this. Every piece has a little bit of ourselves, which to more insidious individuals, and even that bad self-think, makes it a prime target. A little more wind and we can shoot the breeze. My personal interpretation, there is a lot of wind coming out of a lot of mouths sometimes. That could, in my opinion, be used to start an actual conversation. Reminiscing back to the start line, madness indeed, I believed I was part-time. So this is a line that's particularly involved with Calli's past, but also I think has some connotations for content creators that do start to get bigger. You see, most people who start doing content do content along with having jobs. Calli did until several months after her debut. Some of my friends who are growing well on Twitch and YouTube still work full-time. And when you're small, when you're not expecting much, that's fine. But once you start to grow, you become beholden to your audience to a certain extent. That drive to continue to grow starts to take over a little bit, and the burden of leading these two lives starts to take its toll. One is the expected, the one that every regular person does. The other is something that could potentially become more than you ever dreamed, but in an aspect is uncertain. Most start to burn the candle at both ends, and when it starts to wear on them, they begin to doubt themselves.
Sick to my stomach, quick, bit of mischief, miss hit, fuck this shit, then a bitch quit, stop, forget this, be an entertainer, reaper with killer wits, they cannot restrain her.
These next three lines, I think, are very evocative of the struggles of starting out. A lot, including myself, tend to work ourselves until our sleep schedules are ruined, sometimes our health, or it just negatively impacts us in some emotional way. But in the beginning, it's just sort of messing around, no matter what we're doing, because we don't know if we're going to be successful yet. But then moving on, the way of creating content is very much miss, hit. You never really know what's going to do well unless it's something that is currently a hot topic. And at times you really do want to just throw in the towel. Looking at the numbers, falling into that trap, and just feeling like you're not making any progress. But when you're able to let that go, stop being so critical of yourself, and embrace the fact that you are an entertainer, and just entertain for the sake of it. That's when I believe as a content creator you can find happiness. Yes, if you want to grow, you have to be smart about it. You have to watch your trend and your numbers, but they're not everything. and you can't let those numbers make you start to hate yourself. And the little last line, Reaper with killer wits, they cannot restrain her. This is something that's a bit more personal to Calli, but being viewed in a different way can also apply to us more independent creators as well. You see, Calli does work for Cover Corp. They own her character. If she were to leave today, Calliope Mori could be played by somebody else, much like how they've done with Kizuna Ai. But I don't think Cover Corp is stupid like that. And they try to veer away from making an artist unsatisfied to the point where they would give all of it up and try to strike it out on their own. Because I do believe that they've realized it doesn't matter the character, it's the person behind it, which is what viewers come for. Now, the alternate way of interpreting it is that any hate you receive, any backlash you receive as a creator, justified or not, only holds you back if you let it. Ultimately, the comments and the dislikes hold no power over you, unless you let them.
I could be a plain girl. Would you like that? Nah, I think I'll take you to the forest with a spike that beat you and skin you and make me a nice hat.
And looking at these 3 lines, even if you don't let them hold any power over you, it can eventually get to you. There are going to be times where you just can't stand it anymore, and you want to lash out. But I highly suggest if you're a content creator, don't do that. Not only because of the bad connotations it can cause for your channel and your brand, if you're brand conscious, but also it lets those people who are trying to antagonize you know that it's working. You see, people like that feed on attention, and when you give it to them, they're going to come back.
Are you okay? Just a little wet, that's all. But it's every day now. I'm sensing a sense so and can't express how. Eat a light snack, and remain loud. Have a nice laugh all the way down.
But one of the upsides of having your own community is that there will be individuals that ask you if you're okay. And while you can only say so much as a creator, at least you have that. But even then, it's still tiring. Combine that with the grind that is creating content every day and being your own boss. In a way, you can get worn down rather fast. Moving on to the line, I'm sensing a senso and I can't express how. Well, if you don't know, senso is Japanese for war. As if Calli is sensing some sort of oncoming conflict. Now, as to whether that's her versus some antagonistic group, sort of in the way that Coco is dealing with antis right now, or, what I might suspect, the market bubble popping for VTubers, and the inevitable hate and fallout from the many hopefuls who don't make it, targeting larger creators such as Calli as the reason for their lack of success. But regardless, as a creator, large or small, whenever you deal with hate, both from an outside source and from yourself, you still need to take care of you. Have a light snack, and remain loud by keep pushing forward, creating more. And as whatever hate swirls around you, have a nice laugh and enjoy it all the way down.
Who's the one, the loaded gun, who's always pointed downward? Shooting myself again, the sweetest sound they ever heard. Now let's play a game, shall we go a bit deeper? Who is the best at the roasting the reaper? Give it up, haven't we learned any?
I feel like these verses are rather self-explanatory. Creators, such temperamental creatures as we are often our own worst enemies, dealing with that bad self-thinking, self-loathing, we're prone to shooting ourselves in the foot, and often when we do, people seem to rejoice in it, whether it's just a gaffe or people actually enjoying the fact that we're suffering in some way due to our own mistakes. I have to agree with Calli on this. There's really nobody who's better at roasting yourself than you. You know all of your weaknesses. You know all the mistakes that you've made. Ones that maybe even others don't notice. I'll admit, there's been a night or two where I've stayed up awake, wondering if I could have done something better. But I suppose at the end of the day, that's just part of trying to forge yourself into something better, make your content a little bit sharper. Or maybe I'm a masochist. Whatever that means.
Force of nature, little agitator. Show you how it's done for fun a little later. Vomit your comments, my range is greater. G to the UH, saying give up hair.
I will admit sometimes provoking a response, even a vitriolic one, is so entertaining at times. To see what people can come up with and see if you can upstage them publicly is just such a sweet, but ultimately dangerous treat. Because at the end of the day, we as creators have so many more tools at our disposal for retort, be it music, fancy editing, or even a script that's been honed to quite the edge. A creator in an argument, as long as they're smart about it, always holds the high ground. I'll go ahead and admit I didn't get the acronym at first. But that's Calli for you. If she didn't have the scythe, she could always use her wit. It's sharp enough, I think.
There's a lot of thoughts I can't say outright. I've got my chords, you've got your keyboard, and wrote this guy all night. Try again, I'm wishing you well, but you will never roast me better than I roast myself. Hang 'em high, 'cause you won't take my life, 'cause I ain't got none. So sorry, I'm hardly just getting started. But why have you misplaced your life? I'll help you find it. Just follow my shadow. Guess what? I'm on your side. Self-deprecation is a bit overdone. Give herself a point of credit, she could go for one. Understood, have a song where I imply I'm deserving. Now the big-headed bad guy, Calli, got him swerving. I really ought to try to be a little less offensive.
So, I'll cover the hook towards the end of the video. But looking at these next couple lines, sometimes the self-depreciation can get a bit old. If you're always hard on yourself, that's going to become your brand. You could be whatever, a happy-go-lucky cat girl. If you're constantly knocking yourself down, your brand is going to become a self-hating cat girl. A lot of creators, Calli especially, deserve a lot more credit than what they give themselves. In fact, with her last song, Off With Their Heads, she seemed to break this cycle of self-depreciation and actually say out loud what a lot of us think, that she's gotten where she is because she deserves it, because she's worked hard, both before becoming a member of Hololive EN and during. In fact, if you haven't seen my breakdown of Off With Their Heads, after this one, I suggest going and checking the information box below. I'll have it linked there. But even if she has worked hard, the fact that she put out a song criticizing her detractors is going to draw some sort of attention and ire, even though, in my opinion, she is and was right. And anybody who was offended by that particular message, well, maybe a bit more self-introspection is due.
Not to brag, though my vocab's quite extensive. The structure's a mess, not like my flow. Got the message I bested to what? I know! I don't care what you say. Self-hate is an art. If you want to compete with me, then get smart.
So I'm just going to break down this whole part right here together. Going back onto the topic of self-hate, What Calli does in this line is give herself a compliment, then immediately backpedals. You see, one of the things that a lot of creators do is any time that they think they're doing good, that self-doubt, that bad self-think immediately kicks in and drags them back down. Now, for some of them, it's an attempt to remain humble. Nobody likes an arrogant fool, especially one who's new to the game of content creation, like so many of us are. But the thing about it is it's a slippery slope. It becomes familiar, something that we're used to, and eventually you get stuck in kind of a bad feedback loop. And as I said earlier, the one that knows all your weaknesses, the one that can hit you where it hurts the most, is yourself. And it's going to take a real creative individual to try and upstage that.
My dad plays games better, PP Poogies. Look at the size of the brain on you coming through. These burns are the best in the biz. I'll pretend that my aunties are all just little kids. Were you observing what I just did? Reverse self-serving surprises of popcorn.
So I have to be honest here. Some of the insults that can be hurled around online are less than creative. Frankly, I'd be embarrassed to spout them myself. But let's be honest. There's only so many times that you can say, oh, these are just children being toxic, before realization starts to settle in that there are really individuals who go out of their way to dislike you. Not only that, but the retort that they're all just angsty kids really starts to get old at that point, and less than creative in and of itself. Not that it really was to begin with. Essentially, realizing that you've lowered yourself inadvertently to that same level.
Who's the one who smacks herself for fun without a lick of hesitance? Dim my content's only decent club and I'm the president. Now let's play a game, shall we go a bit deeper? Who is the best at the roasting the reaper? Deadbeats, we like it rough. Haven't we learned anything? There's a lot of thoughts I can't say outright. I've got my chords, you've got your keyboard, and wrote the scar all night. Try again, I'm wishing you well, but you will never roast me better than I roast myself. Hang 'em high, 'cause you won't take my life, 'cause I ain't got none. So sorry, I'm hardly just getting started. But why have you misplaced your life? I'll help you find it. Just follow my shadow. Guess what? I'm on your side. Give it up, give it up. Deadbeats, we like it rough. Give it up, give it up. Deadbeats, we like it rough.
So, I said I would cover the hook at the end, and there's a good reason for that. Calli, because of her corporate nature, and yes, she is corporate, she works for Cover Corp, can't say a lot of the things that she would want to. She's held to a contract, and if she were, it would endanger her current way of life and everything that she's built up until this point. And perhaps that's the reason that aunties seem to go after her and others like Coco so hard, is because they know they're being reined in. But even with indies like myself, there's certain things we can't say and shouldn't say, not just because of what character we present ourselves as, but also because we have to be conscious of the platform that we're on and the community rules. You see, we as creators have so much to lose if we lower ourselves down to the levels of aunties. So we have to be creative about it, using our chords or reels of footage or a honed wit. All the while embracing that hate to a certain extent to show that it's not getting to us. In some cases, because we're already far too hard on ourselves. Now, I also wanted to touch on the hang 'em high. Some of you might not have gotten this, so I'll go ahead and explain it to you. You see, Hang 'em High is a Clint Eastwood movie from 1968. The premise? An innocent man survives being hung by vigilantes and returns to try and bring them to justice. Now I'll go ahead and let you ponder on that and how it applies to Calli and other aspects of the VTuber community. But she goes on to say that you won't take my life because I ain't got none. Now, for some people, you can look at this as Calli going in and completely no-lifing her VTubing career. But I'll look at it like this. At the end of the day, lore and character sides, breaking down the mask. The people are hating on a 2D or 3D avatar. They don't know who we are behind it, except in very rare cases. One of the allures of being a VTuber is the anonymity of it. I can tell you right now, if for some odd reason something should ever happen where I get pulled into some mess, I can always just walk away. Nobody any wiser as to who I am. But at the same time, somebody coming at you like that tends to really get me going. In fact, you could say it's an excellent source of motivation to just spite them. Because at the end of the day, who's going to hate you more? Somebody who doesn't even know you? Or somebody who knows all the stupid things that you've done? Like yourself. So I hope you enjoyed that interpretation of Calli's new song, GUH, or as the acronym means, Give Up Haters. It's a heavy topic, not something that a lot of people are willing to probably cover, because it just hits so hard and close to home. If you're a creator watching this, or even just a regular person dealing with that bad self-think or self-hate, I hope you give yourself a little bit more credit. A lot of people try so hard and just can't see it. But regardless, if you did enjoy that video, I hope you'll stick around for more. I'm going to try covering Calli's other song, Red, after this one, as it deals with something that is also very important to new VTubers and content creators in general, I think. That fear of becoming irrelevant. But if you do want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button and that subscribe. Also, I'll hopefully be going live here in the next weekend. So if you want to see that, you can follow me here on YouTube or on Twitch. Until next time, Cabalites, have you seen the violet side?